Hello everyone and welcome to my coloring corner. Today is First Impressions Friday and we have a new product. It's called Sunny. They are water soluble pastel. Now these are a oil-based pastel. They are a 25-piece set and they are basically the same kind of product as the Neo Color 2s. So I will be doing a bit of a comparison between the two after we do the swatch. So this product comes with its own little palette that fits in the lid of your tin. It's a very flimsy little palette, but it does definitely work. It does do the job that you would need it to do. So you just place that in there and you can color on here and wet it down and pick up your colors. It is a 25-piece set, and as you can probably see, they are being used. So I have already done this video once, so we're going to do it again. But this time we're actually going to swatch in real time so that you can see the process of swatching them directly, as well as any issues with swatching or any issues breaking down the crayon. So they are, I'm going to switch you over to the close-up camera here so you can see. They are named, so they do have a name on them. This one here is called Fruity Orange. They do have the peel off areas so that you can make the crayon sharper, like so you can sharpen them. They do come with a sharpener as well as a water brush. So here's the sharpener, and it's got a nice big hole in it so it does fit the whole crayon. And of course it'll fit the Neo colors. Yay! So I was wondering how I was going to sharpen the Neo colors, and now I have the way of doing so. So in comparison to the Neo Color 2s, so here's my Caran d'Ache Neo Color 2s. They are the same type of, same looking product. There is a difference. The Neo colors are a slight bit smaller, so they are thinner, and they are a wax base where these are an oil base. So those are a couple of the differences, and we'll explore more of the differences between them as we go along. So we're going to swatch these. Now I just printed this swatch sheet, so hopefully it's dry enough to swatch them without making a really big mess. So let's figure that out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the color down directly on the page. The reason why I'm doing this is I want to see how easy it is to break down that color and spread it around on the page. And the red is breaking down pretty good, and I'm able to spread it quite a ways down the swatch. It's actually pretty good. Really pretty color too. So this is called Kiss Red, or Red Kiss, I should say. And it fills in this swatch quite nicely. Now this one here, I'm just going to move these so they don't fall on the floor. This one here is called Tangerine Red. Maybe if I just looked at the swatch chart, because it does say on it. This one is Tangerine Red. I'm just going to put down a layer. Oh, I need to rinse that. Don't want to put Kiss Red's color in there. So a good amount of water on there. Break it up and move it along. So it does break up quite nicely and can move quite a ways down as well. Now, the one thing I have found with using these is something that I'm going to discuss a little bit more later on, is compared to using the Neo colors directly on the page, they neither one of them break down really fantastically on the page, but the some of the colors of the Neo color do break down a little bit better on the page. So this one here is, there we go, not moving the way that I wanted to with the tip of the paintbrush, but on the side of the paintbrush it's moving around, which is good. Alright, so this one here is, that one was Fruity Orange. This is Orange Juice, which is a lighter orange. Again, rinse the brush and break up the color and move it along. Trying not to get too much into the black of my printer because it is an inkjet printer, so it does pick up some of that black if you're not careful. And the next one is Sunny Yellow. Again, just rinse your brush, lay down the color. And that dissolved quite nicely and moved quite a bit of color around too. And this one here is Lemon Yellow, which is a lighter yellow. Break that down and move it along the page. And it moves around quite nicely too. Alright, now we're going to go into our greens. This is Apple Green. And as you can see, it has a really good selection of colors, which is important. So far it's got a good amount of red, a good amount of orange. You know, it's very even with its coloring for the red, orange, and yellow. And that light green broke up quite nicely and moved around the page as well. The next one is Grass Green, very important green, especially if you do a lot of landscaping. Okay. Typically, I don't normally do the swatch like this because it does take a while. However, this is only 25 colors. It shouldn't take a horrible amount of time. Again, broke up quite nicely and was able to move right across that square. And then the next one is Olive Green. Definitely does not look like an olive color. It's a little bit dark for an olive color. And it has a little bit, oh, there it goes. So depending upon how much you put down, I guess, it's having a couple of issues breaking down. It's actually breaking down the paper a little bit. Trying to get it to break down, so rinse that off. So the olive green does have an issue. I'm wondering if I printed this on the wrong side, but I don't think I did. So the olive green doesn't break down as easily as all the other ones so far. So we've got spruce green, which looks more like an olive green to me. I wonder if they got the covers mixed up there. And that breaks up really nice. So far the only one I've had a major issue breaking up is the olive green, which to me looks more like a dark green. The lighter colors seem to be breaking up a lot easier. There's sky blue. A nice light blue. It's a pretty color actually. Try not to get too much into the edge because my printer likes to bleed. Alright, now we have ultramarine. Breaks up pretty good. I think I should have put a little bit more down. I've got a hair on the page. So it's a nice color, but I definitely would have needed a little bit more to get a good pigment out of that. This one here is sapphire blue. Let's put down just a touch more pigment than we did with the ultramarine. And we're just going to go this way. And it breaks down really nice as well. And moves quite a distance there as well. I'm having issues with the paper. I'm starting to think that maybe I printed this on the wrong side of the watercolor paper, so it's peeling it up a little bit. Too late now. This is marine blue, which is a nice dark blue. It also breaks up fairly nicely. And moves quite a distance on the square. Next one is purple. Make sure I've got the right crayon. Alright. And it also dissolves very nicely and can move quite a ways. I'm not using a whole lot of water because I am finding that my paper is pilling a little bit, so that's my own fault. I probably printed this on the wrong side of the page. It happens sometimes. This is mauve or mauve. And it's a light purple. I'm just going to turn the page a little bit here because I feel like my arm is in wet. I don't want it to be. So it goes quite a distance. That's a pretty color. It's definitely a lighter purple than the other purple there. This one here is lovely pink. Also breaks up quite nice. And spreads quite a ways as well. So there's definitely so far a really good selection of colors. And of course, with a water-based product like, or a water-soluble product like this, you can definitely mix colors together to get a uh, another color. So, well, you can with any product really, but it's a lot easier with a water base than a pencil crayon. That one is Flesh. That's a really nice color for Flesh. And then we have Sallow. Looks like a nice sandy brown color. Also breaks up quite nice. A really good color. Moves around quite a bit. Actually dissolves almost completely. That's awesome. I like that. Alright, the next one is Dune. Again, breaks up quite nice. And spreads quite a ways. So Dune is more of a gray brown color. It's quite nice for rocks and stuff like that. And this one is Red Ochre. Alright. Breaks up fairly well. There we go. I was going to say it has a little bit of the issue, but not much. But it broke up. So, no issues. Never mind. This one here is Dark Chocolate. And it's breaking up really good as well. Moving on the page quite nicely. It still has a bit. It's not as bad as the olive green, but there does seem to be still a little bit of residual leftovers there. So this one is Silver Gray. And it may also be how hard I'm pressing on them. Alright. So that's Silver Gray. It's definitely a gray tone. I don't think I rinsed my brush well enough. And it definitely breaks up as well. I think my brush may have had a little bit more of that brown on it. And then this one is an ivory black. Definitely breaks up. And can be spread quite a ways. It's a good color too. Now for the last one is Cloud White. It definitely comes up a very nice white on the black. Now let's hope my printer ink doesn't completely mess this up. So it is dissolving. And is spreading on the square. I am trying to not agitate it a whole lot because of the printer ink. But it's definitely white on there. Now my printer ink is going to come up because it is an inkjet printer, so it will bleed into it. So it may take over the white, but we'll see. So I'm going to switch you back over to the main screen here. All of them dissolved quite well except for the olive green. Olive green had a bit of an issue in dissolving. All right, so those are our colors. We've got a really good selection of color from our reds to our orange, yellow. We've got 4 good greens, 2 blue greens, 2 yellow greens. The blues, we've got 4 good blues, 2 good purples, a pink, a flesh tone, sand yellow, sand brown, a light brown, almost a terracotta kind of brown, and a dark brown, silver, gray color, as well as black and white. So with all of those colors, we can definitely create many other colors to go with them, which is great. All right, now we're going to do a little bit of a head-to-head here with the Caran d'Ache Neo Color 2s. And we're going to take a look and see this is just a watercolor paper that is a 300 pound, I think. No, 140 pound. This is cotton, 100% cotton. So I wanted to test against the Neo Color 2s, to see what the difference is between an oil-based and a wax-based um, watercolor crayon, as well as to see if it's something that if you're brand new to this kind of medium, if it's something that you can purchase instead of the Neo Color 2s, save yourself a little bit of money while you practice and play. So the Neo Colors have only got one pink as well, which is this one here, which is of course pink. So we're going to compare the two pinks because both of those are the only pinks available in each set. So let's put the Neos over here. Okay, so the Neos feel really smooth on the paper. And I don't feel much of a difference between the two on how they go down on the paper. The Sunny does feel a little bit sticky, and that might be because it is a oil-based crayon, not a wax-based crayon. So I'm going to move these over here and stick this under the close-up camera so you can see a little bit better of what we're doing. Okay, so this one here is the Sunny. This one here is the Neo Color. So let's check the Sunny first, and we'll see about breakup. So on this paper, it doesn't seem to be breaking up as well as it did on the swatch paper. And that may be because it's textured and the brush isn't getting in there to break it up. Or it may just be because it's sticking to the cotton. So it does seem to be taking a lot of effort to break that up. So let's try the Neo Color and see if it breaks up a lot easier. or if it also takes effort. So it is breaking up a lot easier. It is a bit of a darker pink as well. So the Neo color did break up a little bit, well, actually a lot easier than the Sunny did on the watercolor paper here. Just trying to see if maybe more water would help. And it does seem to be breaking it up a little bit more, but it is taking a lot of work and it's washing out the color quite a bit. So on watercolor paper, the pinks of the Neo Color 2 and the Sunny are definitely no comparison. The Neo Color 2 wins out definitely. So we've got grass green here. Again, this is the Sunny. And again, it feels a bit sticky. And then we'll grab grass green out of the Neo Colors because they're both the same color. Well, the same color name. They are fairly close. Looking at them dry, they look very close to the same color. Now we're going to wet this one. And again, it feels like it's having a little bit of issue in getting that color broken down. It is breaking down the color, but it seems to be stuck in the little grooves of the paper. But it is at least breaking down a little bit better than the pink did. And the color is definitely there and moves quite nicely. Now let's try this one. And 3 little passes, maybe 4, and the Neo color is completely broken down. Now the Neo color has way more yellow in it. Definitely a different color. And again, a much smoother product. Alright, so that is directly on the paper. In this area here, we're going to do a check on the palette. So I gotta find my palette. As soon as I can find my palette, I moved it. There it is. So we're going to go directly on the palette. And my palette's a little dirty, so we'll flip it over so that we have a clean side. So let's go with our purples. So this one here is the Neo Color Violet. And as you can see, where are you? There you are. As you can see here, I'll put this paper under it so you can see it. When you color it on the palette, it's basically just like scribbling on the palette with any other watercolor pencil. So this is the Neo Color 2. I'm going to take the brush. I'm going to make sure that it's not got green in it because that would be horrible. Green and purple. Great color combination. However, you don't want to mix them together. So as you can see with the Neo Color 2's complete dissolve in just a matter of seconds. So let's see our color and a good color saturation as well. Let's pick up all that color. So a really nice color saturation directly off the palette. And of course the color completely dissolved on the palette, which is great. Now that's the Neo color. Now we're going to do the same thing with the purple from the Sunny. So I'm going to put it below it here. So I'll put the paper under it so you can see it. It's pretty close to the same color as the Neo colors was on the palette. a little bit squishier and it feels a little sticky on the palette. Now, like I said, these are a different product. These are an oil-based compared to a water-based. So far what I've noticed in that comparison is that when you're using them on the palette or on paper, you get a bit of a drag feel, a little bit of a sticky drag feel. So it did dissolve just as quickly as the Neo color and has a great amount of color as well. Definitely not as dark as the Neo color, but it definitely does cover quite nicely. So in comparison between the two, um, I will say definitely the Neo color is a much higher quality product. It does dissolve on paper a lot better than the Sunny does. However, the Sunny is a much more budget-friendly product. And for a beginner, I do have a coupon for 50% off of this product. So for a beginner to start out with coloring with this product, the Sunnies may be a better alternative for you to learn how to use the product, to get a better feel for using the product. Now we're going to use this product in coloring this seahorse here. So let's grab our purple. Yeah, let's start with purple. And yeah. So we're going to put down some purple here. And with a medium to wet brush, I'm going to dissolve that down. Now, you will find that your color saturation is dependent on your water consistency. So if you have a really, really wet brush, your color is going to show a lot lighter than if you have a small amount of water on your brush and more pigment on your brush. That's just the nature of the game. It's the same with any watercolor medium. The more water that you have, the lighter and more translucent the pigment is going to become. The more pigment you have, the deeper the color and that sort of thing. So I'm just going through and painting the deeper areas, the areas where I want the shadows to be. I'm getting that as dark as I can. Because what we're going to do next is we're going to take that same color, we're going to take as much water as we can, and we're going to dilute what we have on the palette, and we're just going to move it around. And we're going to use a lot more water this time around. It's still going to put that same color down. However, it's going to be a lighter color, a lighter tone, because of the amount of water that we've put down into it. So it creates that shadow for us using the same color. The same way you would with colored pencils, just the pressure of colored pencils. Now we're going to use a bit of, we're going to create, yeah, let's use some orange. So we're going to use the orange juice. we're going to rinse the brush, and we're going to dry the brush a bit. And we're just going to dissolve little bits of this at a time, getting a really heavy pigmentation on the tip of our brush. Now you can use a fine tip brush for this, getting into these smaller details. I'm just using the very, very tip of this number 6 round. Making it darker at the bottom, dragging the color up. And we'll be adding a different color to this as well, just to make it a little bit darker on the bottom and to blend it into those little spines on it, on the fins. Darker as we get to the bottom. And then we've got his little chest piece here. So once again, this one is the orange juice. So this is the lighter of the orange colors. Alright, now we're going to rinse our brush. And we're going to take the darker of the orange colors. So this is the fresh orange. No, fruity orange is what it's called. Again, just going to scribble it on the palette. Take my brush, make sure it's very, very clean. Take as much water off as possible. And pick up a good amount on the tip, very tip of the brush. And we're going to come down through here. And into our shadow areas. Pick up some more paint. If you find your brush is getting a little dry, dip it in the water and dry it off again. Just so that you can get that thick pigment in the areas that you want it to be. Another thing that you can definitely do is use your heat gun and dry the page. But because I'm using very little water for this part, I'm not too concerned with how wet the page is getting. And then there. Now you can tell if your brush is getting too dry if you are having a hard time laying the pigment down. So my brush is getting a little dry, so I'm going to rinse it out and dry it off and pick up more pigment with it. Which makes it a lot easier to move around. Now, I am not perfect with this medium at all. It is something I've played with a little bit with the Neo colors, as well as with this set in the past couple of days since I got it. Just made a mess. My preference is a paintbrush instead of the water brush. I do find that I can control the water a lot better using a paintbrush than I can the water brush. But if you are more comfortable with a water brush, like I said, it does come with one, which is fantastic. Now we're going to add a bit of the red. So we're going to take some of the tangerine and we're going to put that down as well. Now this is an orangey red color. Again, drying the brush, picking up all that pigment on the very tip of the brush. With the details like this, it is a lot easier to use a thin brush or the very tip of your brush. Just for those little tiny details. Such as like that. So there is our little fella. Now we're going to color some leaves. So let's grab our grass green. Put it down on the palette. Take our brush. Now I'm going to leave most of the water on the brush instead of knocking it off. And I'm just using the very tip of the brush to get into these little tiny areas. Same with over here. Just concentrating. Hold on a sec. Concentration. Alright, now we're going to take our olive green color. So this is spruce. And we're going to put some of that down. And I'm going to dry the brush quite a bit and round it out a little. Pick up some of that color on the very tip. And we're going to get some of that in here. Just going to put a little bit of that CBD kind of color into it. Like that. Now we're going to mix some color. So we're going to take our orange juice. So we're going to take some orange juice. We're going to take some red. We're going to take some white. And we're going to take some pink. We're going to try to make a peach tone because the flesh tone that they have here, it's a nice peach tone, but it's very light. And I want a bit of a darker flesh tone than that, like a darker peach tone, if that makes sense. So we're mixing color. Now let's see what kind of color we created here. Hopefully it's the color I wanted. And it is. So it's just basically a scribble of red, a scribble of orange, a scribble of pink. And it gives you that light peachy tone that you want here. Then we're going to take a bit of this red, because this one here needs to be a little bit darker in the back there. And this needs to be a little darker here for the root area. Like so. Yay, color mixing. Alright, now we're going to take some, let's see, let's dry that off a little bit. Let's take a little bit of this blue. And we'll do the edges here. And then we're going to take a little bit of the purple. Now, if you already have these colors down on your palette, just use the colors that you have in your palette until they're all gone. And that way you're not wasting a whole bunch of color. I want a little bit of orange. Like so. Alright, now we're going to use the sallow, which is a nice tan brown color. Get a good amount of that on the palette here. And take our brush and melt it all down. Now this is going to be our sand color. So we're going to cover everything that is sandy with it. And we'll put in some other shadowy colors and that sort of thing afterwards. Now that looks like a sand dune in there. Let's just cover all of this. A little bit more water. Pick up all that color. And as you can see, the more water I add, the lighter the color is. So as you can tell, you can definitely take the color directly from the palette onto the page and get a really good coverage. Another technique you can use is called a wet on wet technique. And what a wet on wet technique is where you take a lot of water and you put it down first, and then you take the color and you wet it down and put it over top. And then you get that kind of effect of pushing it around. Starburst kind of effect. So now we're going to take the dark chocolate we're going to put down a good layer of that. And wet it down, make it all mushy. And break it all up. And we're going to do our shadows with it. Now, if you find that you have a little bit of that pooling, just take a paper towel or a cloth. Now, I know this is looking kind of dark and a little stark in the areas, but I'm going to be going over it with another color as well. We'll be using some of the dune on it as well, which is a nice pale gray tan kind of color. Which will give us our sandy kind of color on top of that brown. The brown will just be shadowing it at that point. Okay. Just make sure I get all the shadowy type of areas in. Alright, now we're going to rinse that off, and then we're going to use the dune. And we're going to dry our brush. Now it's not completely dry, it's still got quite a bit of water on it, but it's drier than it was when I put down the sand color. And it's just going to move that color around, filling in any lighter areas and gaps with a little bit of that brown tone. I think I might need a little bit more. Yep, need more. Need more dune. Alright, I'm going to break that up. Bring the water into it here. And you'll see a difference once it starts to dry. Alright, so there's our dune colors. Now I'm going to try to do a wet technique here without bleeding this out. So I've put down some water on that bubble, and we're going to take this blue and we're just going to touch it. And we're going to take a drop of water and move it around. Now my printer ink is spreading a little bit, so it's going to give it a bit of a halo, a black halo. So now we're going to do wet on wet. So we're going to take our sky blue here, and we're going to put down a really good layer of it. And we're going to take our brush. So this is a wet on wet technique. And we're going to take our brush and we're going to wet the page here. Now we're going to take this paint and we're just going to put it down. Now the paper is not as wet as I'd like it to be, so it's not spreading the way I want it to. So I'm just going to put down a little bit more water. And then we'll put some more paint down. And as you can see, the paint is starting to spread out. Now we're going to take some of this blue and some of this blue. And some of this blue. This one. And that's what's called a wet on wet. Now I'm going to take all three of these blues together, and we're just going to do a little bit of, because these are supposed to be underwater, I'm just going to take a little bit and wash it over that area. Now that's going to have to dry, and once it dries it'll show different levels of the blue. So that's a wet on wet. Now another thing that you can do with these crayons is you can use them dry. So what they mean by using them dry is you can go straight on the page, color an area, like so. Now I don't like white spot, and as you can probably see, there's lots of white spot in there. So how do you blend that out? Well, with any watercolor medium, you blend that out with your paintbrush. So this is nice and dry. It's got a little bit of water on it. I don't want it soaking wet because I don't want to take all that pigment off the page. So just quite dry, just enough water to move that pigment into the white spot. Now, there is a time and a place for white spot. I completely understand and agree. But on my fishy is not one of them. So as you can see, it completely covers that whole area. I'm going to do yellow here. And again, it feels a little sticky on the page. Completely dry the brush with just enough water on there to move the pigment around. So if you're doing this in a coloring book, this is definitely a technique that you can use to get that nice smooth color and deep color without doing a whole lot of water damage to the page. You can also do this with the Neocolor 2s as well. So that is the dry technique on what you would do to use them dry. I have tried with the Neocolor 2s as well as these to do the smudging just like you would the King Arts. It doesn't work. I haven't been able to make it work. So I would not suggest that at this point because, like I said, it didn't work for me. If you are able to make that work, let me know how. Put some green in here. Again, drying the brush completely. And moving that around to fill in the white spot. So if you have issues like I do with your printer bleeding, the ink bleeding and that sort of thing, this is definitely one of those ways that you can use this kind of medium without a whole lot of water bleeding out your pages. All right, so in conclusion, I'm going to switch you over to the close-up here. No, mean. There we go. In conclusion, there is a wonderful arrangement of colors. You can definitely paint an entire picture with them wet. You can definitely put them down dry and blend them with a little bit of water. They do have a good color saturation. Are they as good as the Neocolors? No. They do break up a lot harder than the Neocolors do on watercolor paper. I have found on the palette they break up pretty much the same. The Neocolors do have a little bit higher pigmentation, but again, it's like apples to oranges, or Granny Smith to Honeycrisp, because they are the same type of product. They are the same. It is an apple to an apple. However, the Granny Smith is going to have less sweetness, less taste, less color. The Honeycrisp is going to be a bright red. It's going to be sweet. It's going to have, that vibrancy to it. So same type of product, much less cost, way, way cheaper. They do work very nicely on the palette. You can blend them and mix them to create new colors. If it is something that you want to test out that you haven't tried before and don't know how to use, to get a better feel on how to use them, it is a good alternative to purchasing something that's highly expensive that just to experiment with. I have done backgrounds with these. It is quite simple to do a background with them as with any watercolor medium. Um, it's just the matter of getting enough pigment on the palette to put it on the page. So my first impressions of them are great color selection. They blend and create new colors very nicely. They do work quite well as a watercolor going from palette to page. They are very nice for going directly on the page and blending with a little bit of water. Are they top of the line, 100% best quality ever? I don't know. I don't think so. I think the Neocolor 2s has them beat out for working directly on page, but directly on the palette, they both have a really good breakdown. They have a good coverage, that sort of thing. So what I'm looking for with breakdown is when I put them on the palette, did they break down and dissolve completely? Both did very nicely. The coverage, is there a lot of blank spaces? Both of them covered very nicely. Um, that sort of thing. Now, can it be reactivated with water? That was another thing I was going to check. So these are both dry now. Wet brush. Using an agitation, wetting down that pigment. And it does not seem to be moving a whole lot. So we're going to do the same thing with the Neo. Wet brush. Now there's more pigment in the Neo, but it is also moving quite a lot more. So let's go up here where the pigmentation is thicker up here and see if that moves it. A little bit, but not a whole lot. So they're not something that is easily reactivated with water, which is interesting. The Neo Color 2s, like I said, their pigmentation is quite a bit, so they do react and reactivate with water. So you can blend into them by reactivating them. Now let's check this one. So even at the highest pigmentation area, which is this green area, this top area where the green is still built in, I'm not getting a lot of reactivation on that. So it seems that the Neo colors are more likely to reactivate than the Sunny, which is a good and a bad thing all in its own. So for example, if I wanted to blend this out a little bit and then blend another color into it, I can definitely do that with the Neo 2s, where I wouldn't be able to do it as well with the Sunnies. Now, if I want to put another color on top of it and not reactivate this, then I have that ability. Just kind of surprised that the Neo Color 2s reactivate better than these do. Nature of the beast. Now these are an oil base, so they are a slightly different product. The Neo Colors are a wax base, where these are an oil base. And what that means is that the percentage of oil in the crayon compared to wax in the crayon is a bit higher. Where with the Neo Color 2s, the mixture of wax and oil is more concentrated with wax. So that's the only meaning of wax base and oil base, is the percentage of concentration of oil compared to wax in the binder part of the product. So the pigmentation of the product is a different thing altogether than the binder. Now I find that the pigmentation in the Neo Color 2s to be quite a bit higher than the Sunny on most colors. There is a couple that no, pretty much on all colors. So the Neo Color 2s do have a much better pigmentation, which is to be expected. With the higher cost and the higher price to them, you expect a higher quality of product. I will leave the link to the 50% off coupon for these in the description below the video. So I have a 50% off coupon. There's also another coupon on the site as well. Make sure you click that as well. Together it's approximately $24, $25 off, which is a pretty good deal. Great selection of colors. They dissolve quite nicely on the palette. It comes with its own palette, a sharpener, as well as a water brush. 25 colors, some information, and that sort of thing. I think personally a great starter set for this type of product. So if you've never used this type of product before and you want to experiment with them, absolutely one of those things that, especially with the cost and with the savings for today, and I do believe the coupon is good for the month, but I can't guarantee that because it only lasts for as long as their stock lasts. So if they have a limited stock, it may disappear sooner. But for the money, for the ability to play with a watercolor and get your bearings on it, I think a wonderful product. All right, guys. With that being said, I will of course be playing with these throughout the month, and maybe if I find any issues or problems, may do a final review on them. But at this point, I don't think so because there's not really much more to say about them. They dissolve in water, they cover really nicely, they blend beautifully, you can mix colors, and they don't reactivate as well as the Neo colors. They aren't as pigmented as the Neo colors, and like I said, these are an oil base, so they feel a little bit sticky when putting them on the palette or on the page. You can use them dry or you can use them wet. Pretty much the only things that I can really say about them. All right, guys. With that, I would like to say thank you very much for watching. Always remember to like, comment, and subscribe to any YouTube artist that you enjoy. And always remember to relax, color, and stay safe. Until next time, guys, bye-bye for now.